Hey, what's going on, guys? Taking a little break from homework right now to talk about a match that the WWE is inducting into the Hall of Fame for the first time ever. Um, Usually they induct people, individuals, teams, factions, even. Now they're inducting matches. They're taking a page out of UFC's books. UFC has a place in their Hall of Fame for some of the greatest fights in the history of their promotion. So WWE, their partner organization, is doing the exact same thing. And the first one they're choosing to induct is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 13. Now, we talked a lot about this on the WrestleMania review of WrestleMania 13. David said that this was one of his favorite matches. I said that this turn was done so well because when the match started, when the feud started, Stone Cold Steve Austin was the heel and Bret Hart was the baby face. And Bret Hart, was one of the biggest baby faces of all time, was the top baby face of the preceding era, the new generation era. From WrestleMania 10 to now, for the last 3 years, it was Bret Hart. I mean, sure, you had Shawn Michaels, he was there. You had Diesel, he was there. Razor Ramon, but at the top was Bret Hart. Even when they went with these other guys, the Lex Lugers, the Diesels, the um, the Shawn Michaelses, they always went back to Bret Hart because he was the study guy. He kind of was Hulk Hogan's successor in the company for the new generation era. What Hogan was in the 80s, he was in the early to mid 90s. And Stone Cold Steve Austin, he had been in other promotions. He started off in Memphis. He worked in World Class Championship Wrestling when they merged with Memphis in 1989. And then from there, from USWA / World Class Championship Wrestling, he went to WCW. Pretty much the same gimmick, Stunning Steve Austin, managed by Lady Blossom, his wife at the time. Joined the Dangerous Alliance in late 1991, going into 1992. Had great matches at that time. In WCW, the opponent that he had the best chemistry with was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. We had television title feuds in 1991 and 2. And then in the latter half of 1992, going into 1993, Steve Austin, started teaming with Brian Pillman to form the Hollywood Blondes, and they beat Steamboat and Douglas in a tag match for the titles. Then from there, late 1993, they break up the Hollywood Blondes tag team. Steve Austin gets himself a new manager in Colonel Rob Parker, aka Rob Fuller, the Tennessee Stud. He comes to WCW. His first charge that he's in charge with, other than Sid, is Stunning Steve Austin as a singles wrestler. And it won't be long after that Steve Austin wins at Starrcade 1993 the U.S. Championship from Dustin Rhodes in his best 2 out of 3 falls match. Then Austin proceeds to have other great feuds with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat over the United States Championship, both at Clash of Champions that year as well as Bash at the Beach 1994. But Steve Austin becomes a victim of Hulk Hogan's politics. As Hulk Hogan is coming into to WCW, he's bringing a lot of his friends, old WWF guys, and giving them high prominent spots. One of the guys he gives a prominent spot to is Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And Hacksaw Jim Duggan defeats Steve Austin in a couple of seconds. Ricky Steamboat comes out. He announces his retirement from wrestling, but he has a replacement opponent. His replacement opponent for Steve Austin that's going to take his place is Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Hacksaw Duggan defeats Steve Austin and becomes the United States champion. And him and Austin have a feud up until Halloween Havoc 1994. Now, after Halloween Havoc 94, going into 1995, Austin becomes injured. So while Austin's injured, Eric Bischoff, who is the boss of WCW and is getting an increasingly greater role in creative by this time, decides Austin is not marketable for a guy with black boots and black tights, so he fires him. And Austin's left without a job, so he calls up his former on-screen manager, who's now a promoter in Philadelphia, Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman says, come to ECW. Paul Heyman is a promoter for ECW, the booker for ECW, the co-owner along with Todd Gordon. Austin comes there as superstar Steve Austin. And he just begins to rant and begins to speak his mind about how he feels about his bosses in WCW. He makes fun of Nitro, calls him Monday Night NyQuil. Monday Night NyQuil, makes fun of Hulk Hogan. He talks about how he wanted programs with some of the top WCW guys like Sting and Hulk Hogan, and they said, well, nah, baby, that's for somebody else. Of course, making fun of Dusty, right? So he starts causing a stir in ECW. He doesn't really do much in ECW because he's still out with an injury, but much like Brian Pillman, he shows a different side of himself once he gets to ECW. So that gets the attention of Vince McMahon. And because Jim Ross is now the new head of talent relations in WWE, Jim Ross decides, let's bring him in. Jim Ross knows him from WCW. He says, let's bring him in. So he brings him in. And they have an idea for him. He debuts in late 1995. And the idea is he'll be the next $1 million champion managed by Ted DiBiase. And he'll be called the Ring Master, the Master of the Ring. Of course, doesn't get over. It's a stupid idea. He debuts on the Brother Love show. After that gimmick fails, he says, I want to come up with something else. An ice gimmick to show that he's ice cold, right? So they come up with stupid names from like Chili McFreeze. That's Vince's idea from Chili McFreeze. Well, that sucks. So one day, while he's still married to Jenny Blossom at the time, she's from England. Of course, she was Chris Adams, his trainer's former wife. So he was trained by Chris Adams, and then he stole Chris Adams' wife. Way to go, Stone Cold. Right? So she uses a British expression, drink your tea before it gets stone cold. And he's like, that's it, Stone Cold Steve Austin. So drawing a lot of inspiration for his character from Woody Harrelson's performance in Natural Born Killers, the movie with Juliette Lewis that came out at the time. That's the name he adopts. And from there, he's working programs with Savio Vega. Him and Savio Vega are trading wins back and forth. He works his first WrestleMania 12 in 96 against Savio. Then at Beware of Dog, the pay-per-view in May of 96, they have a loser leaves town match. If Vega wins, it's Caribbean strap match. If Vega wins, that's the end of Ted DiBiase. Ted DiBiase's contract is coming up, and he's jumping to WCW. So that's the best thing that could have happened to Stone Cold at the time. Now Stone Cold is on his own. And another thing that happens around the same time is that other guys are leaving to WCW, including Razor Ramon and Diesel, a.k.a. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And they do the curtain call May 19th, 1996. We talked about it several times, what it is. It's the infamous break of kayfabe by members of the backstage group or the backstage group of friends known as the Clique. So when they do this, Triple H is involved and he's punished. So Triple H, who was supposed to win the King of the Ring in 96, plans change and they slot Austin in that spot. Austin wins. He cut a religious promo on Jake the Snake Roberts. Austin 3:16 says, I just whooped your ass. And he blows up immediately. But even then, in the latter half of 1996, he doesn't really have that much of, that prolific of feuds he has with Mark Merrow, for example, trading wins back and forth with Merrow on several pay-per-views. But he's called out Bret Hart. Bret Hart has been gone from the company since losing the title to Shawn Michaels in the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12. So he's calling out Bret Hart. At this time, Bret Hart is in contract negotiations between WWF and WCW. So in November of '96, Bret Hart finally makes his decision and he says, I'm sticking with the WWF. I'm here to stay in the WWF. And I accept Steve Austin's challenge for a match at Survivor Series '96 for the number one contendership of the WWF title at Madison Square Garden. Now, this is an awesome match. Bret Hart wins by pinfall after Austin puts him in the $1 Million Dream, the movie, of course, he copied from his former manager. And Hart pushes back with his feet on the turnbuckle, beating him in a similar way he beat Roddy Piper for the Intercontinental title back in '92 at WrestleMania 8, he being Bret Hart. So they have their rematch. I mean, Bret Hart goes on to have his match the next month with Sid, and he doesn't win the championship. But in January of 1997, Bret Hart is slated to win the Royal Rumble. But on one of the WWF's programs, their booker, Vince Russo, as his character, magazine writer, Vic Venom, comes out on Livewire and basically exposes the plans for Bret Hart to win the Royal Rumble in '97. So they have to change course. And at the Royal Rumble 1997, despite being eliminated, the referee didn't see it. He was distracted by Terry Funk and Mankind fighting on the floor. Austin crawls back in and he eliminates everybody. And Austin wins the Royal Rumble 1997, going on to WrestleMania, we think, presumably to face, well, The Undertaker, because The Undertaker, either The Undertaker or Sid or Shawn Michaels, because Shawn Michaels that night at Royal Rumble '97 defeated Sid to win his second WWF Championship. So we think, okay, Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 13. That doesn't happen because what was supposed to happen was there was supposed to be a rematch between Shawn Michaels and Bret the Hitman Hart. Shawn Michaels had one at WrestleMania 12. Bret Hart would have two at WrestleMania 13. That doesn't happen because Shawn Michaels gets injured. On an episode of Raw in the early part of '97, Shawn Michaels surrenders the championship, and he says that he lost his smile and that he's going home. So he won't be wrestling at WrestleMania 13. So what do they do with the championship? They decide, since the championship is now vacant, they will hold it up. The final four participants in the Royal Rumble will compete in a fatal four-way match. That's Vader, The Undertaker, Steve Austin, Vader, The Undertaker, Steve Austin, and Bret Hart. For them, and whoever wins the WWF Championship. Well, Bret Hart wins. But the next night on Raw, Bret Hart has to put his WWF Championship up against Sid in a cage match, and Stone Cold Steve Austin interferes. So Stone Cold Steve Austin has now just cost Bret Hart the WWF Championship. So it's signed officially at WrestleMania 13, a rematch, a submission match between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret the Hitman Hart. And they bring in Ken Shamrock. Ken Shamrock had been tearing it up in the UFC, was one of the first biggest stars of the early UFC era from 1993 to 1997, along with the likes of Dan Severn and Hoist Gracie and Chemo Leopoldo. Chemo Leopold, those early guys, you know what I mean? Like really early UFC guys that were big names, especially Shamrock, because he really stood out because he had pro wrestling training, so he incorporated some of that into his MMA repertoire. But MMA is losing ground, losing a lot of money. It's poorly managed by the Gracies and by Bob Meyerowitz of SEG, who bought it from Art Davies, the original owner and founder of it. And the United States government is banning UFC all across the country, particularly encouraged by Republican Senator John McCain. So Shamrock decides to go back to wrestling. And the way they're introducing him into the WWF is through this special guest referee stipulation. And what better sense does it make than to have this submission master who's an MMA fighter in a submission match? So they do that. They have the match. The stage is set. Hart is a babyface. Austin is a heel. Austin is a vicious heel. But fans are starting to like Stone Cold Steve Austin. So there's a trend in professional wrestling since July of 1996 when Hulk Hogan turned heel and joined the NWO of classic baby faces from bygone eras turning heel. So Vince decides, let's do that with Bret Hart. Let's turn him heel. But they do it in an interesting way. They not only turn Hart heel, they turn Austin face. And Austin never gives up. He gets beaten to a bloody pulp. Hart has him in the sharpshooter, and Hart just will not let go of the sharpshooter, even despite what Shamrock says. Shamrock has to physically force Hart off of Steve Austin. And Austin still manages to walk out of there. So fans gain a newfound respect for Stone Cold Steve Austin as the toughest son of a bitch in the World Wrestling Federation, and a newfound hatred for Bret Hart when they walk out of the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, Illinois, on uh, that spring of 1997. And that catapults Steve Austin to his momentum to become the guy who saves the WWF from being put out of business basically by WCW. Because once WCW got the NWO running, the NWO storyline, Hulk Hogan turns heel, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash make the jump. Now they're in WCW. WCW kicked WWE's ass for 83 weeks in a row. And it was Stone Cold Steve Austin who saved them, and Stone Cold Steve Austin's popularity who brought them back. That catapulted Steve Austin, who was brought in to be basically a mid-carder. By the next year, WrestleMania 14, he's wrestling Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship with Mike Tyson as a special enforcer. So what does that tell you? And he became bigger than Hulk Hogan in many ways. This kicked off his run. It was Bret Hart who gave him that rub. Bret Hart liked Steve Austin. Bret Hart advocated to bring Steve Austin into the WWF. He saw him wrestle in WCW. He said, I could do a lot with Steve Austin. And he could, because Bret had been through that same rigmarole. Bret was brought in as a tag team wrestler initially in 1986. In the 80s, Vince McMahon was doing his national expansion. And of course, one of the places he wanted to expand was Western Canada, Bret Hart's province of Alberta, Calgary, where his father was promoted. And Bret was already a rising star in his father's promotion. After failing to go into the Olympics for amateur wrestling, he figured, hey, I'll just go into professional wrestling, my family's business and profession. So he does that, and he's already a star in his dad's promotion. But in '86, Vince wants to buy out the promotion, and Stu Hart says the only way you're going to do it is if you take these four guys. His son Bret Hart, his son-in-law, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and two tag team wrestlers, the Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith. So they come in as a package. The British Bulldogs versus the Hart Foundation. Initially, they wanted Bret Hart to wrestle as a cowboy. Bret was like, I'm not doing that. So he adopts the nickname Hitman from Thomas Hearns. And he comes in as that. And just like with Steve Austin, you know, he climbs the ladder. At WrestleMania 2, like his first rookie year, he's there. He's in one of the premier main events. At WrestleMania 2, we talked about it. That's another Chicago event. 1/3 of it is in Chicago. And the main event that Bret Hart is featured in is the Battle Royal between the NFL stars, who the Chicago Bears. They had just won the Super Bowl the year before in '85. They're there. William the Refrigerator Perry is there. A bunch of NFL players and WWF wrestlers. And the two that remain, the last two, is Andre the Giant and Bret Hart. And Bret Hart, you know, stays in, you know, goes all the way, other than Andre the Giant, who wins the thing. And that's the Rosemont Horizon in 1986. So imagine Bret Hart is wrestling, and then 9 years later, he comes back to the same arena in Chicago, Illinois, at the Rosemont Horizon, and has this incredible match with Steve Austin. So he came in as a rookie in the Rosemont Horizon, and he leaves as a veteran in the same building 9 years later. What an amazing story. And Brett works his way up, man. He does stay with Jim Neidhart until 1991, and then in 1991 he wins his first singles title against Kurt Hennig in the Garden. And then in late 1992, he finally wins the WWF Championship against Ric Flair, and now he's a main eventer. But he was able to pass that torch on to Steve Austin. It was amazing. Amazing story. So, hey, Lisa, what's going on? And Lisa told me about other matches that they're thinking about inducting into the Hall of Fame in the future. Steve Austin versus CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011, is a candidate. I'm surprised they did not go with Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan from WrestleMania 3, but I guess, that's not good right now because Andre the Giant's passed away and Hulk Hogan is, well, hated and despised by the WWE audience because of his association with President Trump. But other good matches I would like to see going there. Game-changing matches. The Iron Man match from WrestleMania 12, the Austin versus Rock 2 at WrestleMania 17 from 2001. Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame. Lisa, he came running in 2013. But Lisa, she thought WWE loved Trump. Nah, not really. Not the new owners. Not the new owners. The new owner, Lisa, is Ari Emanuel. His brother, Rahm Emanuel, worked as the chief of staff, the first chief of staff for Barack Obama and the former mayor of Chicago. And the Democrats are thinking of the to be a prospective presidential candidate for 2028. So, could you imagine that? The owner of the WWE's brother as the president, that'd be wild. And he doesn't just own the WWE, he owns the UFC as well. So as close as Dana White is with Trump, Ari Emanuel trumps Dana White. So the connection with the Democrats is even deeper than the connection the WWE or UFC, or as they call them now, the combined brand of TKO is with the Democrats if Rahm Emanuel gets in, which a lot of Democrats don't like Rahm Emanuel because he's an example of what I was talking about, the internal battle with well, he was already on Raw. He was already on Raw in 2008 while he was campaigning. You know what I mean? Yeah, they all were. All three of them. John McCain, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. This was before Hillary dropped out in 2008. He said, "Do you smell what Barack is cooking?" Hillary Clinton said that she's Hill Rod, aka like Hot Rod, like Roddy Piper. And John McCain said his fans were the McCain-maniacs. You know? So yeah, the new owners of WWE are different than the old. Vince McMahon is no longer there. Linda McMahon is in Trump's cabinet, but she's not in the WWE anymore. She is the former CEO of the WWE. She is the mother-in-law of Triple H, who runs WWE. Runs is different than owns. Remember that. Uh, it's like McDonald's. A guy that, like people say, oh, well, Dana White runs UFC and he's with Trump. Yeah, but again, Ari Emanuel trumps Dana White. Ari Emanuel is higher in the UFC slash TKO slash WWE pecking order than Dana White. Dana White is like picture you have McDonald's, right? You have the store manager, and then you have the people that own the company, right? The store manager, yeah, he runs one branch, but he doesn't run the whole thing. Triple H runs creative for WWE. He writes the storylines, but he's not the ultimate boss. In fact, The Rock is higher than him. The Rock is the chief board member. You know, the only person above The Rock is Ari Emanuel himself. So yeah, WWE is under new ownership. Before they were under Vince McMahon, it was a different company. The politics were different um, when he was when he was in charge. But since since September 12th, 2023, he's not been in charge, and it's been a whole new company. And a lot of fans like the new direction that the company is going into. And plus, maybe they don't even care about politics. Maybe they just want to make money. And Hulk Hogan came out, Lisa, on the first Raw on Netflix, and he got booed out of the arena in Los Angeles. Now, I don't know how smart it was for him to come out in the middle of Los Angeles, considering it's California and it's a state. It's Kamala Harris's state. He threatened Kamala Harris with physical violence on the campaign trail. He threatened to body slam her, right? But he got booed, man. Fans just shitted on him. Fans were like, you know, as soon as he opened his mouth, him and his manager Jimmy Hart, they got booed out of the arena. You know, because he was so. It's like with Elon. I said Elon Musk fucked up because he he tied his brand of X, SpaceX, and Tesla too closely to Trump. You don't want to do that as a company. You don't want to, or as an entity, you don't want to tie your brand too closely to a candidate because when that can't, that's actively running, like say somebody like Obama, that's different because he's no longer in office, right? But somebody that's either actively running or in office, you don't want to do that because that would alienate a specific consumer base. Why do you think companies in music, for example, like Barry Gordy, they never talked politics back in the 60s? And other music artists did, but they didn't because they didn't want people to say, "Oh, well, he's taking this position or he's taking that other position. We don't like him for that reason, or we don't like him for this reason." You know. And Hulk Hogan and Elon Musk did that, and Hulk Hogan and Elon Musk both suffered for it. You know what I mean? Especially Hulk Hogan because fans already despise him even without the MAGA shit because of the racism from 2015 where he said the N word on TV. You know, you know, and the thing that's funny about not Hulk Hogan, but the thing that's funny about Trump and Elon is that Tesla is an environmentalist car and Trump is anti-environmentalist. Why 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 does he care about this car? You know what I mean? Crazy. Trump and the Republicans believe that global warming is a myth. So yeah, a lot of Chicago talk. Chicago. This match was held in Chicago. Bret Hart's initial coming into the main event was held in Chicago. We talked about Obama from Chicago. We talked about uh, Rahm Emanuel and Ari Emanuel. No, it's cool. It's cool, Lisa. We tied it in. We tied it in with a Chicago theme, but it could tie into a Texas theme as well because Stone Cold Steve Austin is from Texas, so a lot more Texas videos too. In Texas and Chicago. But yeah, you know, I like WWE's new management. I think it's you know they're taking the company in new directions. Vince McMahon, he was old. You know what I mean? It was time for him to leave leave wrestling. You know what I mean? And he didn't want to leave it to his kids, so he's like, you know what? I'll just sell my shit. But one of the interesting things is that the company TKO, they not only do MMA, which they do in UFC MMA, they not only do wrestling, which is WWE, they do cow rodeo shows, right? And on the WWE's YouTube channel, they feature rodeo shows. And I've never watched rodeo because I'm from New York. Why would I give a shit about rodeo? But I watched it a little bit on WWE's YouTube channel. It's pretty interesting. It's not as boring as I thought it would be. Like they get on these horses and bulls and shit, and the bull bucks up and down. The bull going crazy, and the guy has to try to, stay on it while the bull is moving up and down. The shit is funny. So you specialize in wrestling, MMA, and bull riding, a company that specializes in three different arenas, three different unconventional sports activities. Isn't that crazy? You know? But yeah, that family is all over the place. The son, there's three brothers. There's Rahm Emanuel, the politician, Ari Emanuel, the businessman, and another one, a famous physician, Lisa. So the Emanuel family is very prolific in the world, like in medicine, in business, and in politics. Join me later, Lisa, because after I get finished with my homework, we're going to do a review today, a movie review on Hook, the movie by Robin Williams, one of my favorites. So that's what I'm going to do next. Yeah, I don't know if you like that movie, but we'll be doing that. Because I want to do another series, guys, but I don't know what series to do. I did WrestleMania, I did Star Wars. I got a lot of compliments on WrestleMania, got a few compliments on Star Wars, and people seem to like these long series, but I don't know what to do next, you know. Oh, black movies. Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. That seems more appropriate for February, but we can do it, this month. Albums I don't want to do because I don't know. Like I would love. Yeah, black movies seems cool. So you're right. Now that I think of it, albums I don't want to do because like even though I'm in a music school and you would think, okay, yeah, I love music and it's right up my alley. But music is different. Like it's really hard to do a review on specific albums or songs. I could try, You know what I mean? I guess it's no different than a movie or a wrestling review. You know what I mean? But less time consuming. But see, albums are different too because with albums, most people don't listen to the whole CD or the whole record, right? Most people like they know the songs they like and they just skip to them, especially during our era, the CD era, right? Or the nowadays era, the stream era. They don't really listen to the whole thing, right? So you can't do that with a movie or a wrestling event because it's the totality of the event or the movie. You know, if you skip around and you watch only certain shit, you're not gonna really understand the whole plot. Like there's no plot to music. There's no theme to music. It's different uh, than a movie or a wrestling event. So it's harder to discuss. You could say this song is good, this song is bad, I guess. Yeah, you could do live performances. Yeah, we did decade in review. Those decade in review ones were really good. That Lisa and I did back in the day. Check those out. Those are really good. We did year in review for wrestling. Those are really good. People love those. Um, so yeah, I'll try black movies. You know, you got to go all the way back to the '70s. And I'll try '90s music. You know, and we covered a lot of it in '90s kid shows. That's a good idea. Yeah, '90s kid shows. Yeah. Or Disney. I was gonna try Disney movies, but I have school and I have to get most of it done on the day off I have on Friday and the weekends. And Disney has so many movies. Like they've existed since 1923 to now. Like that's 100 years. In order for me to do every movie, and they started with Snow White in '37. In order for me to I would have to never get any sleep. If I was still like I was before I had a job or before I had school, I could do it because I just have nothing but time. But I have school, I have workouts, I have friends in school. You know, it's just too much, guys. Like Lisa's saying. Lisa also is my co-host. She would like to be in on a Disney review, I'm sure, and she has stuff to do. You know, in her personal life, we can't do it. You know what I mean? It's impossible. The company is too old. I thought WrestleMania would be impossible. I'm like 40 WrestleManias, and you know how am I going to get this done? But it was a monumental task. It was a tremendously hard task. Believe me, it was late nights on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, man. But I did it, and I showed it to my class, and my teacher loved it, guys. You know, he's not into wrestling. He's not a wrestling fan. He doesn't know anything about the content, but just the thought I put into it. You know, he assumed it was all correct, the information wise, because I know that the content he doesn't. You know what I mean? And neither does anybody really in my class. But the amount of effort that I put into it, you know, he really thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, he thought it was good. But got no credit for it. You know, could have submitted it for an extra credit or something, but I just wanted to show it to him just based on what he thought. You know what I mean? I thought I was never going to be able to do that. So I'm like, how am I going to get this shit done? There's 40 WrestleManias, and I only have 3 days out of each week. But you guys saw me. Sometimes I was online, me and David. David, it doesn't affect him because he's in California. So his time is different. So what's like my 1 or 2 o'clock is like his afternoon. So, but I was on there from morning to night on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays doing that, guys, and I really enjoyed it. You know, not only doing the reviews because I didn't just go off memory. I watched the shows too. Um, and I took notes that I took notes. A lot of times you guys would see me looking at my computer is because I was looking at my notes. I never script my videos, and I didn't script those either. But I took little bullet point notes that that I had about each 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 era of WrestleMania and each WrestleMania individually. So the Star Wars one wasn't that hard. It was 9 movies. I didn't do the Mandalorian. I didn't do Solo. I decided to scrap those, the TV shows. That was much easier because I only did the 9 movies, and I pretty much watched those movies so many times that they're in my memory embedded. So, so that was pretty easy. And the other review videos I did before I was in school, so that was different. You know what I mean? But I know, and Disney is already like somebody's already cornered the market on all of the Disney movie reviews. That's why I wouldn't want to do it either. Doug Walker does Disney December each year, but see, he gives himself a whole month, and that's his job. I mean, the nostalgia critic. So he could devote himself entirely to just that. Yeah, we did a whole Pixar video at least, but reviewing each Pixar movie would be cool too. Um, yeah, that's a good idea. At least Pixar. Black movies. Nobody's ever done an entire review on all black movies. I don't think that I've seen. Why did WrestleMania? Why I started the WrestleMania series was because the Decade in Review series was good. The Year in Review series for wrestling was good. But I'm looking around because WrestleMania season, and I was looking around, and there's no comprehensive list of all the WrestleManias that everybody has done. Not from 1 through 40. Like there's 1 through 30, where there's like after the 30s, 30 to 40, but there's no 1 to 40. So I'm like, you know, that's the mother of innovation, guys. Like you look at the market, you look at music, you look at movies, and if you're a music creator, a movie creator, a content creator, and there's something you want to see and you're creative, hey, you want to see it, why not make it yourself? You know what I'm saying? It's just like they say in politics, be the change you want to see in the world. So you want to see a comprehensive list of all the WrestleMania reviews done by somebody, and it doesn't exist, create it. Make it. You know, and, so Pixar doesn't exist. So yeah, let's do it at least. DreamWorks, let's do that. DreamWorks doesn't exist. That's a slept-on company. You have Prince of Egypt in there. You have Shrek in there. Eh, You know, what about? I was thinking about Rocky, but then I'm like, nah, Rocky's a lot too. And like, I don't. That's a harder one because like for Star Wars and for wrestling and Pixar and all these other movies, Disney, I could just call up Disney Plus and do that. With Rocky, I don't have really access to all the Rocky movies, and I'm not just going to go off memory and do them that way. I have Creed downloaded, and I have all 3 Creeds downloaded. But the older Rockies, yeah, I saw them when I was a kid, but I don't, they don't really, they don't really stream all in one place that I'm aware of. You know what I mean? So I decided to scrap that. Um, Selena, we're doing on the 31st when I come home from school. We're doing that, but that's just a one-shot deal. You know what I mean? Because that's only one movie. That's in honor of her passing that day. And That's pretty much it, guys. That's what we have planned for this channel. If, of course, when news comes around, we cover that immediately. Like if a big news event, like if somehow we enter into World War III tomorrow because Trump decides to go to war with Iran, uh, maybe everything will get scrapped except for the Selena review, and we'll just be covering that from now till whenever. But if plans stay the same, we got WrestleMania 41 coming up on April the 20th, April the 19th and 20th. So of course we'll be doing that, and we'll be doing the Selena review. Those are the two things that for sure are scheduled. And Pixar, Lisa just came up with, and the Black Movies review we'll be doing. I guess a little bit later down the line, but unless somebody dies or a major world event happens that we want to talk about, then we'll be talking about it. Oh no, yeah, thank you, Lisa. But I'm pretty on top of things. We didn't do a whole video about the leak, Trump's leak. We mentioned it in passing in the Gregory Abbott video. Basically, my opinion on that is that Trump fucked up. You know what I mean? He shouldn't. If I don't have a real opinion that I could really flesh out into a review that I have a lot of opinions on and it's something I feel strongly about, I won't do a review on it, guys, because I'm not going to make a short review saying something a little short like Trump fucked up. It was a national security breach. He shouldn't have done it, and he fucked up. You know what I mean? He let the reporter into the chat room, and even though he didn't know the reporter was there in the chat room, how are you not going to know who's in the group chat with you? The reporter did the right thing by saying this, because why? He's a reporter. That's his job. You know what I mean? Like a lot of conservatives are making it out to be like he's the bad guy because he said what he heard. But hello, if the Houthis come over to the United States and attack us because he failed to say something, right? Then it'd be hit on his fault, on his conscience. So why is Trump doing this? I didn't cover the Tesla terrorism attacks either because, I mean, come on. It's like I said, uh, Elon Musk is reaping what he sows because DEI. Okay, yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. DEI is something that's interesting to me because I feel like David, Trish Stratus versus Chelsea Green. I don't know if that's in a DEI match at WrestleMania 41. But yeah, DEI is interesting to me because, like, I mean, we know why it exists to level the playing field for certain disadvantaged groups, but it can be taken advantage of. And it has been, it mostly benefits women. It doesn't really benefit minority groups and mostly Caucasian women, which is interesting that David would bring that match up. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go back to finishing my homework, editing my podcast that I'm assigned to edit. See you guys later. Thank you, David, and thank you, Lisa, for contributing. Always welcome, David, as well as Lisa. Peace.